Good morning. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and today we're going to take a look on the 18th of December at a very interesting long range. And I'll get more into detail as to why I'm considering it an interesting long range here in a moment. So let's go ahead and kick things off right now, and let's take a look at what's happening across the area in Southeast Virginia. As of right now, we have the yellows, again, as I mentioned in every video I make. I mentioned that the yellows and the oranges show your higher wind speeds. And if you follow this axis here, this is your polar front jet stream axis with a trough across the western United States. And into the troughs comes the coldest air. And whenever the jet stream bows upward towards the poles, that indicates warming or an upper level ridge. So right now across the southeast United States, we have an upper level ridge which is building its way upward towards the mid-Atlantic at the present time. Trough in the west and the ridge building across from the southeast U.S. into the mid-Atlantic. So conditions have definitely become milder as the cold air, which is denoted by these purple colors indicate the coldest air. They are over eastern Canada right now, the coldest temperatures. And over southeast Virginia, we are milder now as the upper level heights rise and the upper level ridge builds into the area. So that's what's going on right now on the 18th of December. The forecast valid for tomorrow. On the left, I have the jet stream map, and on the right, I have the temperatures at 5,000 feet to show you where the coldest and warmest temperatures are. So starting off on the left side here with the jet stream map, what we have is the strongest wind speeds with the jet stream, again, are indicated by the yellow colors, and the legend is here at the bottom, indicating yellow is 120 to 130 knot winds of the jet stream. What we have going on is the trough generally slides to the east. It basically is lifting, it's filling, and so it's not expected to intensify much more, but there will be a little bit of upper level wave or disturbance that will kick off some showers for southeast Virginia Wednesday night into Thursday morning associated with this upper level trough. Overall, though, we have more of a zonal flow across the United States from the west coast to the east coast. Not much amplification in the jet stream. With the temperatures, again, the coldest air is denoted by the oranges, by the maroon colors, and the reds and the purples. That remains well to the north of southeast Virginia and of the United States as a whole. We have an upper level ridge that's situated over Florida, which is basically providing mild conditions for the southeast United States and across the Gulf Coast states for tomorrow. Looking at Wednesday, the forecast for Wednesday, so let's look at some changes. You'll notice some changes over time. So now we got a new trough, a new upper level trough. The jet stream takes a dip across the Pacific Northwest area, Northern Plains states area. We have a little bit of a ridge or rising heights and warming temperatures across the Midwestern United States. Coldest air remains again over Canada, so really no changes over the next 48 hours as the coldest air remains bottled up in Canada. Looking now at Thursday, the 21st of December, what do we have going on? Okay, now we have a little bit more of amplification in this jet stream. Let's go back. Let's take a look and compare the 20th on Wednesday to the 21st on Thursday. Now we're starting to get an upper level ridge building into the western, basically the eastern Pacific Ocean, all the way up towards Alaska. Into the Gulf of Alaska, we have an upper level ridge building. And then downstream of that long wave ridge, we have a deepening long wave trough. Now, the deeper this thing gets, the trough, that will allow the colder temperatures to pour into the base of it. And so look at what we're having going on. Upper level ridge and a long wave trough now moving into Colorado and into the plain states. And you have more of a ridge that's building again. A slight ridge is building with higher heights over the mid-Atlantic region over southeast Virginia. So we expect conditions to get mild and remain mild across southeast Virginia. Now the coldest air, again, remains well to the north, but you do see a little bit more of a drop down from Canada into the base of this upper level trough, or the jet stream as it takes a dip. You see the colder temperatures coming down basically into the Dakota states, eastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, and eastern Colorado. And then along that boundary between the cold air, denoted by the purples, and the milder air denoted here by the yellow colors, you have an area of lower pressure that's forming along that boundary. Moving on to the 22nd, that area of low pressure is now deepened or got stronger and is now headed over basically the UP of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And behind this low, there's a frontal boundary that will drag itself basically from the lower part of Michigan all the way down through western Tennessee, northwestern Mississippi, and then also down into Louisiana. So we have cold air that is starting to pour down into the Midwestern United States now. So some of the cold air is getting tapped into from Canada, and you can see by the amplification of the jet a fairly significant amplified upper level ridge into Western Canada and a deepening trough into the Midwestern United States, which is allowing this cold to start pouring into the base of the long wave trough. So conditions are becoming more amplified again with the jet. And then by Saturday, the 23rd of December, we have pretty significant amplification where we have this huge upper level ridge that is building northward into Western Canada and a deep trough of low pressure, upper level trough of lower heights that is dropping down from Canada into the western United States, into the northern plains. This is going to allow the cold air that had been remaining to the north over Canada to come down into the United States, upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, eastern Nebraska, eventually here into Illinois. And then you see this upper level ridge that has built off the east coast of the United States. Now our winds have become more southwesterly aloft at this point in time. So at about 30,000 feet, if you were to look at weather data, you would see southwesterly winds by this weekend, Saturday the 23rd of December, Christmas weekend. Now look at Christmas Eve. The strong amplification continues. That upper level ridge is fairly built up fairly significantly. We have a strong ridge along the west coast. There is a trough that's then moving behind the ridge into the Gulf of Alaska. So you have the ridge and then another very deep trough, which is allowing this cold air to readily pour into the Midwestern United States and the Northern Plain states. Again, notice over Southeast Virginia, though. Southeast Virginia has southwest winds aloft at 30,000 feet, and there's a ridge here over the Western Atlantic Ocean, just off the east coast of the U.S. So with a southwesterly wind flow aloft, that's going to keep the coldest air back to the northwest of Southeast Virginia. So the cold can't readily penetrate all the way through to the east coast and clear the east coast with this kind of southwesterly wind flow out ahead of the main trough axis. Coldest air again pouring into the Midwestern U.S. at this time. Now by Christmas Day, it's going to be cold for some parts of the country. It's going to be cold for the Northern Plain states. It's going to be cold for the upper Midwest. It's going to be cold even into the Ohio Valley. But again, over Southeast Virginia, here's your upper level high with a clockwise flow, southwesterly winds over at 30,000 feet above our heads here at the ground where we live, and that results in milder weather. The core of the coldest air again remains to our northwest at this time. And then the forecast for Tuesday, the 26th of December, many of you will have holiday plans even after the Christmas holiday is through. Between Christmas and New Year's, we're looking again at highly amplified pattern. There's a ridge off the eastern Pacific. Then we have an upper level high, which is it's situated well to the north over north central Canada, and then a troughing again into the United States. So the core of the coldest air remains over the upper Midwest, Ohio Valley, into the northeast at this point. It does translate easterly to New England at this time. The coldest air remains north, however, north of Southeast Virginia. But you will notice that the winds are becoming more westerly now across our area in Southeast Virginia, vice southwesterly. So there's a little bit of a change in the configuration of upper level winds, which steer and direct that weather. 27th of December, looking out even longer range, we have a trough now that is developing over the Intermountain West. And then we have more of a zonal westerly flow that has developed over Southeast Virginia. So the core of the coldest air will remain to the north still, over the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. All right, so why did I call this presentation interesting long range? Well, it's interesting because we definitely know one fact. It's going to get cold again across the United States. That is a for sure thing. But where does the amplification of the trough and the ridge set up? Okay, in other words, where does this big ridge set up? Where does the trough set up? And when we look at this pattern here, where does this ridge set up? Where does this trough set up? Do we remain in the southwesterly winds aloft over Virginia and milder temperatures? Or will this trough move all the way to the east coast and clear the coast? And will we be in much colder air? Will this much colder air be readily able to pour down into southeast Virginia and the mid-Atlantic states? So that's the real big question right now. We do expect mild conditions through at least Christmas Day for southeast Virginia, with high temperatures in the 50s and 60s. And this is much different to the most recent stretch of cold weather that we just experienced over the last couple weeks, where temperatures were well below normal. You could definitely feel the sting in the air as the Arctic air easily cleared the coast of the east coast of the U.S. Christmas right now looks quite mild, especially earlier in the day. We do expect rain to be a possibility for Christmas, the way things look now, as a cold front moves across southeast Virginia. So we'd expect milder temperatures in the morning, possibly slightly falling temperatures into the afternoon and evening on Christmas Day itself, and a little bit of wet, especially through early afternoon. The long range again looks rather interesting. We definitely know another surge of Arctic cold air is moving into the United States. The question again will be the jet stream pattern and where the coldest air sets up. So where does that upper level ridge set up over the western U.S.? Does the upper level trough east of the Mississippi River amplify further towards the east coast, or remain to the west, keeping southeast Virginia in milder southwest conditions, with the core of the Arctic air remaining back to the Midwest? Right now, the American GFS model showing a colder pattern. The European model, however, holds the cold well back to the northwest of southeast Virginia. So this time of the year is usually a case of the southeast ridge versus Arctic air. So if the southeast ridge is strong, and when I say a ridge, I just mean an area of high pressure. If that is strong, the core of the cold air remains to our northwest, and it's almost like a roadblock. The core of the cold air just can't quite clear the coast. But if that southeast ridge is weak, then we could have much colder temperatures. So again, to end this, I'll mention a different amplification of the polar front jet stream will make a big difference between the mild versus cold weather for southeast Virginia. Stay tuned to Spot On Weather for the latest updates. Remember, we will cover everything you need. We're Spot On Weather. If we're not spot on, we're not doing it right. Have a great Monday, everybody.